Hello and welcome to a new Photoshop tutorial. I'm Andrei, and today I'm going to show you how to edit bird photography in Photoshop and Camera Raw. Probably the next tutorial that I'm going to make is with another photo using Lightroom, but this time I'm going to show you how to edit these images in Photoshop. You can get this image from unsplash.com. On my website you will find links to other images if you want to practice, and also to this one, of course. On the video description you will find a link that will take you to my website, and there you'll find all the images that I used for this. You can also download the PSD file if you're a premium member if you want. And that's pretty much it. I'm using Photoshop CC to make this, but you can create this in pretty much any Photoshop version. If you have Photoshop CS6 at least, that would be great. And if you have Photoshop CC, even better. But you can get similar results with other Photoshop versions. So I hope you will enjoy this tutorial. Let's go with the intro and let's get started. I made this tutorial because Gonzalo Menendez asked me how to create a particular effect in Photoshop. He's a bird photographer and he asked me if I can get a similar result to what he was looking for. And he sent me some of his images. Let me show you the ones that he sent me. Well, these are his images shot by himself, and he asked me if I can get something similar to this one. So this kind of colors and this kind of look. This one is over processed in my opinion, but he wanted to get similar results to this. Now, something really important in this kind of effects is the resources that you're using. If you pay attention to this one, you can see that you have bokeh effects here, and most likely these are fake bokeh effects. So in my opinion, these are fake backgrounds, and I'm going to show you how to change the background of this kind of photographs. I'm not sure, but this is what I think, that this kind of blurred elements around here are stock images. This is the image that I used when I first when I first attempted to get this effect, and this is the result that I got. So I went from this to this. I'm gonna show you how to create this sort of effects and how to change the background. This is the image that we're gonna use on this tutorial, and this is the original. So I went from this to this. So if you're looking for this particular effect, let's see how you can do it. So let's open the image first, and the first thing I want to do is create a copy with Control-Command-J. Now I like to use Camera Raw, and if you zoom in at 100% you can see a lot of noise here. Obviously this is a JPEG file. If you have a RAW file, it's a lot better. Let's make it first just a little smaller, 3000 pixels, and I like to use the Camera Raw filter for this. So I'm gonna go to Filter and choose Camera Raw. If you don't have this Camera Raw filter, it's because you don't have Photoshop CC, but you can still use it. You can save this image as a TIFF file and then open it in Photoshop, and by default it will open it here in Camera Raw. If you have a RAW file already, that's even better. You will open it straight here in Camera Raw. Now, instead of showing you how I made all these adjustments, I will give you the preset, and you can import it and you can see each of the adjustment, because otherwise the tutorial will be too long. And here I have it on the presets. All you need to do is go here, click this icon and choose load settings, and load this file that's called bird effect first pass. And if I select it, check the image, look how it changes. Okay, so this is the first pass of this effect. You can see the settings here. Just cycle through the different modules here, and you can see the settings that I have for this. And I'm gonna click OK to apply this to my copy. I also removed the noise, the color noise, and some of the chromatic aberrations, and this is the effect that I got. The problem is that it also affects this moss over here, and I want to preserve this green color that it has. So I'm going to create a layer mask for this copy. Get the quick selection tool and select this rock over here like that, and I'm gonna fill this with black so that we reveal the original color of the moss. I just want to change the background and the bird itself a little bit. Okay, so I have the selection here. I'm gonna fill it with black. Alt and backspace, and you can see how it looks like. Now you can see that the edges are not perfect. You can do it with the mouse, you can paint over that, and if you have straight edges, it's actually more complicated to get this effect, because you can see here I can use a soft brush and paint like that. Or what I can do is double click on the layer mask and increase the feather. And what this does is, I'm going to put the layer mask on full screen by pressing Alt and clicking on the layer mask itself. If you increase the feather, what you do is soften the layer mask, and that's going to blend the edges here a lot better. Most likely your edges will be blurred as well if you take bird photography, because usually this is done with zoom lenses, and this compresses the background a lot, and that's why you get this blurry backgrounds. Now if you want to see some of that effect through the layer mask, some of that yellowish effect that we got with the camera raw filter, you can drop the density to about, you can see if I reduce it to 0, I have full effect, and if I leave it to about 80 or 85%, I get some of that yellow tone on this moss here. Great, now let's move on. And the next thing I want to do is change this background. Well, first I want to get rid of these two leaves here. Some manipulation is involved in this process, so if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. But I like to get rid of distracting elements like for example this leaf over here. I'm doing it really quick, so don't post comments telling me that I'm really good, I'm really bad at masking. It's not the objective, it's not the point of this tutorial. So I have that removed from there. I would even remove this branch over here, but anyways, now I can open the other background. In this case I used this one. If you're a photographer, you should take your own backgrounds, and you can take them already blurred. And if you're photographing a bird, you can take a different background already blurred with your camera, but I got this image from Unsplash, and I'm going to blur it in Photoshop, and I'm going to paste it right here on top. Now I'm going to filter, blur gallery, and choose field blur. I like this one because it's more realistic, and you should blur this more or less in the same amount that you have on the original photo that you're retouching, but maybe a little less. That way you will have some texture on the background instead of having something really washed out like this. So I'm gonna leave it to about here. And you can also play with bokeh. You can add artificial bokeh yourself if you want, like that, and maybe something like that. And if you blur it even more, you will have more bokeh effects. Okay, I'm gonna click OK and wait for the filter to apply. And we're done. Now I can move this wherever I want. Maybe I should have blurred it a little more, but we'll see. Now I'm gonna have to create a layer mask for this. Now the problem is that we have lots of details here, and sometimes it can be hard to mask. But from that new background that I just created, I just need some of the texture of it. I don't need it. I don't want to have it on 100% opacity. So I'll get the quick selection tool, select the layer of the bird, and create a quick selection like that. Okay. These kinds of selections are pretty easy on this kind of photography where we have the background quite blurred, as you can see there. Let's exclude this here with the Alt key. And do your best, but you don't have to spend like half an hour creating a selection. We just want a basic selection that will include most of the details as much as we can. Let's take a look here. Let's exclude that. Great, I'm gonna leave it like that. You can do a better job, but let's not spend too much time here. I just want to show you the technique. Okay, now we have the selection. I'm going to activate the new background, and I'm going to create a layer mask for it. And it comes out inverted, so I have to press Ctrl-Command-I. Now we have this new background. I have to blur it even more, so I'll have to go back to the filter, blur, and fill blur. And now I can move this around, and now I will drop the opacity of this to 55%. This will let the details show through, and we don't have to mask pretty much anything. Now, the next thing that I'm gonna do is double click on the layer mask and increase the feather, and check, you can see these edges around here. You can see how they will go away when we increase the feather. Don't increase it too much, you will get halos around if you do something like this, so be careful about something like that. And now you have to look through areas like this, get the brush tool, and with black, or in this case with white, you can paint out edges that you don't like. I have the opacity to 50 and the flow to 20, and paint with white to paint on top of that and get rid of this glows like that. The same here, around these edges around here. And here I'm gonna paint with black because I wanna show the bird. Like so. And you can check it out. If I deactivate this layer mask, this new background, you can see that there's pretty much no change here. I have to brush a little more. So it's not a really difficult mask to create, and just add this new background. Now, if you want to move the background around, make sure you unlink this from the layer mask, and you can move it around and have different textures on the image, or even drop the opacity even more if you want to, and you can combine that, and you can see I think it looks better with this new background. It's really simple. Now I have to make some adjustments to this. I'm going to create a color balance. Oops, not black and white. Color balance. I'm going to clip it, and I'm going to start with the shadows. I'm going to give you the values that I have. For shadows, -19, -19, and 30. Oops. With the tab key, you can switch -19 and 30. Midtones, we have -5, -53, and -38. And highlights, 36, 0, and 30. You can see how I got this warm effect. If you want to even out even more the color, you can use maybe a color lookup if you have, and use maybe the edgy amber. This will give you this crazy tone, and drop the opacity just a little. If you want this color lookup to be visible over the background only, you can use this layer mask that I just created, invert it, and fill it with black. And that way the effect is now only visible over the background. And you can use blend modes if you want, maybe the screen blend mode, and drop the opacity a bit, and this will give more light on the background. But I like to have it a bit darker like it was, because that way you get more separation from the background. Let's move on, and that's pretty much it for the effect itself. You can see it. Now we'll have to make more adjustments. Let's create the curves adjustment, and this is to create a vignette effect. I'm gonna drop the tones like that and go to blue and add more blue. Well, actually, let's create the layer mask. With this layer mask selected, I'm gonna create, with the ellipse tool, I'm gonna create a hole inside of here. I'm gonna fill it with black. Now I'm gonna double click and choose feather and soften it. If you don't have this feather option, just apply Gaussian blur on the layer mask and soften it, and we get this tone. It's too extreme, but after we're done, we can change it. And here I can add an effect only over these areas on the outsides of these. So I can create this sort of split tone effect, something like that. Now on the green, let's see what we can do. I can add this sort of tones here, like that. And with the red, I can get these tones. And now I can increase the feather even more. And here on the RGB, I want to have less effect, like that. And if it's too strong, simply drop the opacity a bit. And you can see how I created this reddish tones on the outsides of the image. Great. Now let's move on, and I also want to add some light effects. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to use the same layer mask as here. I'm going to control click it and create the layer mask, and everything that I will paint will only be visible on the background. I'm going to get the brush tool, opacity and flow to 100%, set this back layer to color dodge, and I'm going to use a dark tone like so. And with this brush, I'm going to click once over there, but make sure you have the layer, not the layer mask, selected. It's kind of strong, so I'm going to use a darker tone and a smaller brush. One click there and another one over there. That's still too strong. Yep, over there. Actually, I'm going to use a single stroke with a bigger brush and a darker tone, like so. See that? We just get that light under the bird. If you don't like this, you don't have to add it. That's just my way of working. If you think it's too much editing for a photo like this, you don't have to do it. Now I created a new layer, create screen blend mode, and just add this little highlights over there. I'll just add more of see that? Just add a more fantasy looking effect. And if you want something a bit brighter, you can use a bigger brush and just click once there, and you get that soft effect. I want to add now a bit more of contrast on the bird, so I'm going to create the levels adjustment, and I'm going to give you the values that I have. 27 for the shadows, 1.06 for the midtones, and 225 for the highlights. Now I'm going to invert the layer mask with Control I, and with the brush tool I'm going to set the opacity to 30 and brush tool, opacity 30 and flow 20. And now I'm going to paint with white over the bird because I want to add that contrast. So paint with white to reveal the effect of the bird. And check it out, you'll see around these areas over here on the tail, also parts of the foreground. So paint with white where you want to have more contrast on the image, and that's it. Check it out, see that? Maybe I painted too much here. The last thing that I want to do is create a stamp with Shift Alt Command E, and here I will apply the camera raw filter again. I want to increase the vibrance, saturation, and change a bit the temperature towards blue and more a bit towards magenta, and probably drop the highlights a bit. Oops, the highlights, and increase the whites and drop the blacks a bit as well to just get some more contrast. This is really up to you. If you want to, obviously, if you want to get this yellowish tones, you have to use yellow tones. And here we're gonna do something like that. Okay. I think I like that. And here on the FX, I'm gonna add some vignette, midpoint, feather and highlights to 100%. And maybe on the HSL, I want to increase the saturation of the oranges and yellows and change a bit the hue of the yellows more towards orange, and the greens as well, not too much. And you can also play with the luminance, so get something like that. And with the camera calibration, you can really change the effect here, the tones. Check that out. I can get stuff like this. I can saturate only that channel, get something like that, or change the tones entirely, like so. That's maybe too saturated. I don't think I like this entirely, so I probably drop the opacity to get a mix of tones like this, from that to this. Okay, and let me show you the original. We started from this image and we ended up with this. So I don't think it's a matter of using lots of actions. It's just a matter of creating your own way of working. I think it's a better idea to just create your own presets and evolve in creating your own style and creating your own kind of workflow and create your own presets, your own backgrounds, and that kind of stuff, because those will be the ones that will work the best for your own images. If you have any questions or any suggestions, just post a comment on this video on YouTube. Make sure you follow me if you don't already do it. I have more than 270 Photoshop tutorials on my channel. You can also add a comment from my website if you're watching me from there. And that's all for today. We'll see you next time.